Hey, yo, what's up? This is Ice-T representing for Hype Magazine. Stop playing.
Hey, what's good, everybody? Welcome to another live session with the Hype Magazine. I'm your editor-in-chief, Jerry Doby, and today, very special conversation for me today. I have with us Miss Tina Marie Tyler. She is the event coordinator and executive producer of Rap for Peace. It is a hip-hop gun violence awareness conference that's happening during National Gun Violence Awareness Day. Uh, Rap for Peace is under the blanket of the larger umbrella foundation called Hip Hop for Peace. And it's an amazing movement. We all need it. I'm from South Central. So, gun violence and hip hop is not new, and but it's a bigger conversation. Miss Tyler, thank you so much for being with us today.
Absolutely, absolutely. The event is on June 2nd, which
June
is a
2nd,
Sunday.
Sunday.
That's National Gun Violence Awareness Day.
So what inspired you to create the Rap for Peace? You said you're from Compton originally.
Oh, I'm not from Compton. I did live there for a short amount of time. But let me just kind of start and back up because this event is part of a much larger movement, right? It's a part of a much larger conversation, not just about, gun violence and gun violence prevention in, Black and Hispanic and vulnerable communities, but it's also about the issue of peace within our communities and peace within ourselves and our mental well-being and all of that. So I started off as a television news anchor. And I was approached probably about 10 years ago, I guess, for the first time to participate in the Jane Goodall Roots and Shoots festival in Santa Monica. It's a big festival. We used to have a big parade down Santa Monica Boulevard, and then they usually had a really, really big event happening at the Santa Monica Pier. And so with that, I became involved in peace and Peace Day in the United Nations International Day of Peace. And then I went on to support, other productions, including the 24 hours of peace broadcasts that they do every year on Peace Day. About 5 years ago, Jerry, I began volunteering for the Hip Hop Museum in the Bronx. And one of the things that I did not realize about hip hop is that peace is actually the foundation of hip hop. Now, you could not tell it with the number of gun homicides and some of the other stuff that's going on in our culture and in the genre, but really peace is a cornerstone. So I thought, let me see what I can do to bring hip hop and peace together at the United Nations for the International Day of Peace. And so I came up with this concept, Hip Hop for Peace. And it really is about promoting and restoring peace as the foundation of hip hop. Our organization is based on what we call the 3 R's. The first R is to restore peace as a foundation. The second R is to remove the barriers to peace in our culture. And then the third R is to really reflect about what peace means to us as individuals in our community. What does true peace mean, right? What does positive peace mean, right? So everything that we do centers around those items and those issues. So when I thought about, because somebody mentioned to me during a conversation, Jerry, oh, well, Tina Marie, the rate of gun violence is going down. What? You're sounding this alarm, and there's the numbers are going down. And I said, not my.
Yeah.
It may be going down nationally, but in my community, it's a real living thing, right? And the ramifications of the historic problems that we have had through trauma and through the losses due to gun violence in our community, it still plagues us, right? And so what better way than to use National Gun Violence Awareness Day to be able to really talk about gun violence in a meaningful way in the hip hop and Black and Hispanic communities. hip hop has always been at the forefront of peace. It started with the stop the violence movement in the late 90s, right? And so this is just really a continuation. It's not new, right? But it is a continuation. And what I really hope to do is to bring up the profile of peace through hip hop and through hip hop music and through hip hop culture.
I'm glad that you separated because there's a difference between the genre and the culture, the lifestyle, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I don't know, I'm 60 years old, and some people say that it was a foundation for peace. It was a news agency. It was the news agency for communication across the community, and it was a lifestyle. So, you know, the fact that the concepts of hip hop have been adulterated in the way they have by the powers that be, promoting the violence and creating situations where people are rewarded for looking violent and pretty much bastardizing the culture and making a genre as a separate entity, is the mistake for me.
Mm.
So, you know, I salute you for what you're doing. And it's
Thank
something
you.
that, as you said, it's not just within the music, it's globally. You know, we're having disturbances globally. And hip hop can lead the way. The culture does have the biggest and most powerful voice. I knew
That's
something was
right.
going on when Wendy's used the hip hop granny, you know, back in the 80s. You know,
Mm.
so now they made a lot of money. They've put a lot of us, you know, in jail, or the lyrics can be used as evidence in court, and people are acting out what they're talking as if they're trying to prove something. Talk to me about how you feel hip hop culture, not just the genre, can be leveraged for a tool of peace and healing.
So let me kind of approach that question in kind of a different way. I'm going to answer the question. I think that the commercialization of hip hop, all right, is really the commercialization of our trauma as a people, as a culture, as a community. It really is. And it's also been seen as a way to get out of the community, to come up. I can rap, I can sing, I can perform, I can do all of these things. You know, I'm going to make it, I'm going to get on, I'm going to bring my homies with me, my family, I'm going to buy my mom a house. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's not a bad thing. But in order to be commercial, right, there is a certain box that they have put a lot of hip hop artists, MCs, rappers in. And that is the glorification of what is manifested because of our trauma. Right. So for me, you know, back in the 80s, hip hop was a way to be able to listen to what was going on in our communities in a way that was non-threatening, right? You could go to the church house and the preacher will tell you everything that's going on, and sister mama, you know, sister somebody's, you know, somebody died, and you know, that was a town. That's where we got our news and information, our politics, everything from the church, right? But we all know that everybody wasn't going to church, and that there was always kind of a street element. You hung out with your friends at school, whatever you know, your colleagues, your vibe, whatever, and you had that. And there was always that kind of that bumbling underneath. It simmered, Jerry, what was going on, our trauma, the injustices, you know, the barriers, the restrictions. It was all bubbling. And then hip hop gave voice to that. Hip hop gave voice to that and credibility and credence. It wasn't just that it was happening in South Central, it was happening all over the country, but it was happening differently in different regions. So I would say that just in terms of hip hop, in hip hop culture and hip hop music is a spectrum, right? We've got folks on various ends and all in between, right? And the pendulum swings, unfortunately, based on the commercialization. It does. So right now, it's the more ratchet you can be, the harder you can be, the more, you can talk about and all of this stuff. That's getting the clicks and the view. That's where we are right now. But we're not always going to stay there, because as these artists grow, just like back in the day when we had Chuck D and other folks talking about fight the power and all of that, we grow and mature and we have different experiences. So we approach the problems in our culture, in our community differently. And we tend to be less violent and less aggressive and more proactive with our pocketbooks and voting and those types of things. So I hope that answers your question. It's kind of a roundabout way, but it's trying to get there.
No, it's good. I mean, I feel like it's a large scale problem. So obviously, it's not a simple answer, and hype stands for how you perceive everything. So if you're from Staten Island, you see things and life and the culture from one perspective. From the West Coast, from South Central, it's a different perspective. If you're from the Bay, it's a different perspective. It all revolves around originally the survival of our people. That's the basis. You know, the five tenets, of course, are like our grandparents passing on the morals and survival skills that came up with them, through the civil rights era and before. It was just a revamped version, like, hey, focus on this, 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 and this, and this. And as a culture, we can affect change. But everybody
Yes,
has
we
to be
can.
informed. I think that early on, the cats from Staten Island were able to share the stories with the cats from Compton, from South Central, and from the Bay, and they're all telling the same stories, just differently. And for me, being from South Central, it's an important. I learned a lot about what was going on in New York. I learned a lot what was going on, down south, and as I entered the military early, this is how I figured out what was going on, because of course I'm in this encapsulated world, this microcosm of what America is. So that helped me learn as I moved around the country. So what key messages are you hoping that the attendees will take away from the conference? You've got some really good segments. Look, Soren Baker is one of the coolest documentarians of the culture, especially from the West Coast. Love his books. Covered a couple of his book signings and launches out there. Of course, Battle Cat, is the genius, the emperor of the wheels. Great opportunities for conversations and respected leaders. So, what are some of the takeaways that really you're looking over this it's 2 days?
Just one day.
Just one day? You've got
One day.
a lot going on in one day. Talk to me.
Yes, I do. I packed it in. You know what we do? We only have the spot for one day. We're going to go until they kick us out. Yes.
Amazing. So Soren is opening with the first round, first breakout. Then
Hip Hop and Handguns is his panel.
It's hip hop and handguns is his panel. That's the first day. Tickets are available, by the way. I think you still reserve seats. Are you sold out?
We're almost sold out for the conference, but yeah, people can go on Eventbrite, go to Rap for Peace, and they can purchase tickets there.
On top of our local heroes that I happen to know, from the coast and from the city, right? You guys have partnered up very powerful. UNESCO. We've got, the African division backing and participating. We've got the Caribbean and Latin American division participating. We got the California Attorney General weighing in. Everybody knows Christina Divine, Fox 11 anchor and event host. She's been a stalwart and a beacon of light within the community in LA for decades. I don't know how long she's been around, but she's been around. I remember watching her. I don't live there anymore, but you've gathered a solid and powerful cast. I think we're still back in my earlier question, because I talk too much. What are some of the key messages you hope that attendees will take away from the conference, particularly from the panels and discussions?
So we're not approaching Hip Hop for Peace is nonpartisan, right? So we're not advocating for gun control or what, we're not, that's not what this is about. We are in this event is about mental and behavioral health when it comes to gun violence and how it relates to gun violence. So the takeaway is, what tools can I use in my everyday life to de-escalate some situations? Instead of reaching for my gun or having somebody else reach for theirs, what can I do to de-escalate a situation before it gets to the point where somebody's life is taken? That's the takeaway. Each one of these panels, people have different life experiences, and they will bring, the good, the bad, the ugly. They have experiences in the industry, good, the bad, the ugly. But the main thing that is very common denominator is that these folks have learned coping skills and what to do when they see things escalating, how to de-escalate. What can we do to prevent gun violence? Well, we can provide opportunities. We can make sure that the criminal justice system, there's parity and equality and equity there for people of color. That we are given a chance to make a mistake before we're canceled, right? And then how do we grow and how do we change and how do we correct some of those maladaptive behaviors? So that's the takeaway, really, in a nutshell. And at the end of the event, after the conference, we are having the Presidential Volunteer Services Award Gala, which is a civil service award that is issued by the President of the United States to people that have made outstanding contributions, volunteer contributions in their community. And we have Chuck D is one of the Lifetime Award honorees. We have Dr. Angelina Ruffin, who is the managing director over at the Kaiser Permanente Center for Gun Violence Prevention and Research. We have Dr. Stefan Alexander, who is the professor of physics, former president of the National Black Physicists Association, didn't even know there was such a thing. But he has gone around and almost single-handedly made sure that we had people of color in math and science represented. And then we have John Tilley, who is one of the directors over at Deutsche Bank. And John is the chairperson of an organization in Deutsche Bank called Deutsche Bank Pride, DB Pride. And it is an organization within that supports the LGBTQ community. And John has done an outstanding job of uplifting that community, because we tend to forget gun violence is not just a black thing, right? There are people within the LGBTQ community that are so traumatized, right, that they take their own life via gun. So that's and we have the LGBTQ folks in the hip hop community, so we need to talk about it and address it. So there is a panel specifically to talk about those issues featuring those individuals. So there's a takeaway at each one of these panels for somebody.
Love the Lifetime Achievement Award. I have a Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award myself from
Congratulations,
President Biden.
Congratulations.
It's a big movement. People who are putting work in. I can't thank you enough for gathering them together. As a person, as a father of 6, as a grandfather of 15, lots to look out for, lots to address, and also the mental health issue. If you're not from, and I understand we have an international audience, but everybody's probably aware of Kaiser Permanente. This one is the South Bay. They're probably the one down off of Torrance or Redondo Beach Boulevard, one of the two. And so you've got Chidi Nyoku, who is the director of psychiatry and addiction medicine. And I bring this person up because you had mentioned mental health and the trauma and the PTSD that often, especially in some of the more lively areas, that the young children are going through. And it's not just because of the violence visited on us by ourselves, but the administrative and official people within the justice system. Just an overview, and I understand that you may not be the subject matter expert, but could you just say a little bit of what you've learned of how mental health plays, what part it plays, in the issue of gun violence, and some of the strategies that, an overview of some of the strategies that might be discussed during this conference around that topic.
Thank you for giving me the disclaimer, Jerry, because I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV. So I have the experts coming in because they have all the tools in the tools box, right? And that's really another reason why I wanted to bring everyone together, is because a lot of times, in our industry, in entertainment and hip hop, we don't have access to these folks, right? We don't have the ability to be able to ask questions or have them speak directly to us, right? So I would say that just in terms of preventative measures, it's very difficult to find equilibrium when you're dealing and you're living in trauma, right? And when you don't have equilibrium, when you've got the fight or flight or freeze constantly, you've got all this cortisol going into your system and affecting the way that you think, and all of those types of things. It makes it very, very difficult to look at alternative ways to solve issues. You're trying to find what's quick and happening, and right with you. So some of that has to do with mindfulness and being mindful. And I think that that is a very important preventative measure when it comes to gun violence. Because if we are mindful, and not just mindful of our surroundings and what's going on, but mindful in ourselves, finding peace and healing in ourselves, being able to recognize in ourselves when we're gonna go from 0 to 60. And then when 61 hits, we're, it's on and popping. How do we de-escalate things? And how do we de-escalate ourselves when we are feeling all of these things happening, right? So I would say that, the mindfulness portion of this is very, very important. And it's about finding balance in your life. One thing that a new initiative that Hip Hop for Peace is starting, and I'm very, very excited about it. And I thought about it for a while. I'm not a programming person, and I don't know about programming and all of that. But I do know that there is a lot of healing that can come from horticulture, being out in the environment, planting, growing things, right? Sometimes when people talk about trauma, they only think about violence. Food scarcity is trauma. Having fast food restaurants on every corner and not being able to get good fruits and vegetables, that's trauma. That's trauma to your body, right? And so we have a program that's called Seed to Cipher that we are starting in September. We are working with the only hip hop winery in the world, Abbey Creek Vineyard. And we're going to have a program for young people to come and put their hands in the soil and learn about horticulture and get mental therapy and peace through horticulture. And then, wait a minute, Jerry, we got to add the hip hop element into it. Got to add the hip hop. So the cipher portion of it, which is, what a cipher is in hip hop, is when we get the kids together, we bring in some people from the community, some artists, and we freestyle and we flow and things just come out. That's another way that people can really get some good mindfulness and mental wellness. That's a part of it. So we're putting some art and music therapy in there with some horticulture therapy at Abbey Creek. It's going to be great. I'm really, really excited.
Yeah. I know there's some of us or some of y'all laughing. My grandfather was from the South, and so he had the garden in the backyard. I hated dirt. And I didn't want to play in the collard greens, and I didn't want to go pick tomatoes, and I didn't want to go pull lettuce or potatoes. I didn't want to do any of that. But you know what? When I came back from this last tour in Afghanistan, right? what really reconnected me and helped me meet myself again was tending to some, you know, I did flowers, so I had petunias. I know. It's not, seen as like the gutter guy flower, but it's very delicate. It takes a lot of time, takes attention.
Mhm.
It gives you somewhere else to focus. And I used to think people were crazy when they said, reconnect with the earth, take your shoes off
Mhm.
and really touch. There really is a difference when you reconnect with the magnetic resonance. It helps rebalance you. You don't have to
It
have a pet
does.
or a dog. You can have a pet plant. Have you ever tried to grow indoor tomatoes? It ain't that easy.
Uh, you are right about that.
So beautiful thing. Everybody, has a benchmark moment where they decide to jump into a program or an initiative and champion something and step to the forefront, step to center stage. You were a broadcaster. You covered news items and spoken with victims and, people with initiatives throughout your career. What was the benchmark moment for you that said, this is my mission, this is part of my purpose, and something that I really need to spearhead?
My parents were very religious, strong Christian, good, solid people. And they raised me in such a way that I truly believe that being in service to other people is one of the most powerful things that you can do. It's a gift, right? So for me, I've always been in service of our culture, the underdogs, women, marginalized. I hate the word, but marginalized communities. And that has always been something that I have done ever since I was a child. But I will tell you the pivotal moment for me that went from this is something I'm going to do just for the church and with the church and through the missionary or whatever, and move it into something else is when I was at ABC and the Rodney King tape was released. That was it for me. That was it for me, Jerry. I saw him beaten like an animal by people that were supposed to protect and serve us. And I was so outraged and so incensed that I said, I don't want one other person to have to go through that. Not another mother, not another brother, not another anybody. You know, it just, I don't know, it just resonated in my spirit and my core. And I said at that particular point, I'm going to do what I can do to be able to elevate Black folks and really try to create more of an environment, a living situation, a financial situation in which we can win without, on our own terms. I don't want a seat at the table. I never wanted a seat at the table. I'm going to build a table and invite the people to the table who can effectuate some real change. And so for me, it was Rodney King. It was that, and covering that and having the guests on the shows, and it was just that was my moment.
Watch that on television like everyone else. I was still active duty at the time, and I'm going, what am I
Mm.
fighting? What am I fighting for? I questioned,
Mhm.
like many others, uh, my place. And I think that also galvanized a lot of people to move forward. But you've done it on a grander scale. It takes a lot of intestinal fortitude to stand at the forefront of the wedge. You know what I mean? And be the tip of the spear that attacks an issue um, and creates solution. How did you maintain your courage? Because I this is not something that they just simply allowed you to do. You had to fight. You had to unite a cohort of people and like-minded people to move this forward, this very important work. How'd you keep it together?
It's who I am. I mean, you said courage, and I never really thought about courage, because I think that if you believe, and this is just me, if you believe in something with your whole being, and you truly believe that humans have a right to exist in a fair and level playing field, and I do believe that we do have a responsibility, each of us, whether it's to ourselves or our family or our community. I've just always been an overachiever, so everything I do has always been over the top. But for me, it's just who I am, and it really doesn't take courage, because I don't feel that way, because I just feel that I can't, it's not something for somebody else to do. It's something that Tina Marie needs to do. And so, and I am a hard person to say no to, but people say no to me. I could be very persuasive, but I'm just not going to sit back and just say, oh, all of this stuff is happening and throw my hands up because the problem is too much. No, I believe that you can effectuate meaningful change one person at a time, one conversation at a time, one hug at a time. So
I would say this to you. It's kind of a long-winded way to get to courage, but when you see something that makes you fear and you do what's necessary to act in spite of that fear, that is courage. You may not have been aware that you were stepping into a battle and the depth of the battle. You knew, oh, we got a little skirmish over here, but as you get deeper, they don't really want the situation to change. How can we as a community, global community, even those who can't show up, how can we support? Where can we find out more information? How can we start chapters or conversations in our own communities based on what you're doing with Rap for Peace?
I will say this, you can definitely go to our website, which is peace.org, and find out more about our programs, and you can donate to us. We are a 501c3, and we appreciate, we're all volunteer organization. So, people are coming because, and working with us because they have a passion about something. But Jerry, I want to say something to you, because you brought up UNESCO and you brought up the international community, and you also brought up, what was a pivotal moment for you? Last year, I attended the General Assembly at the United Nations in September in New York. And President Biden was there. And last year, the United States rejoined UNESCO. Okay. I have been elected as the president of the California chapter of UNESCO, because now all of the local chapters are going to open up. And I don't take that lightly. I don't. One of the things that Hip Hop for Peace is now doing, and we're in pre-production right now, is we have been asked by members of the civil society around the world. There were about 140 something people that were on a meeting the other day from all over the world, to create an event to commemorate the end of the decade of people of African descent. That is a huge, I just tear up with that, because with that comes a lot of responsibility, right? Got to get it right. Got to get it right. And I won't even say but. The reality is that people of African descent, I just want to just leave that right there. Because for a lot of people, that means a whole lot of different things. It does. But the United Nations ratified this decade. At 2024, the end of the decade, And we're forced to look back at the last 9+ and say, what have we done? What have we accomplished? And although some countries have enacted legislation that have called for parity and equality and a bunch of other things, in the United States, we really haven't done a whole lot. Just saying. So what has happened now is that the people in the civil society are coming together and saying, we got to do something. We got to do something. So one of the things that we are proposing is creating a fund. We're proposing creating a fund to help people of African descent in certain areas, entrepreneurism, textiles, agriculture, the creative industry, right? So that we can plan beyond this decade and look at the next decade and what can be done. We cannot leave it on our elected officials and diplomats and politicians, and it has to start with us. And that's one of the things I love about UNESCO, is that this is the grassroots. We're here, we're doing the work. We may get the edicts from on high, but we're in here working and doing and implementing peace through education and science and culture every single day. So when you ask, how can people help Hip Hop for Peace and how can people be in support of what we're doing, come to our website, volunteer, come to our events, lend your voice to what it is that we're doing, because it's not just about Tina Marie. We have a global coalition of people that we work with all over the world. And when I was at the United Nations, Jerry, last year, we partnered with the United Nations Global Compact Brazil. And I have to tell you something. They had a hip hop group from the Amazon rainforest, young guys. They were all guys. And they didn't speak a lick of English, but they were so excited to meet me because they're hip hop. And so when I was talking with them through the translator, one of the young men said, hip hop saved my life. Do you know what's going on in the Amazon rainforest? Do you see? So the indigenous people? And he said, hip hop is what kept him going, and the other guys. And that's how they formed the group. So if you can galvanize the power of hip hop to promote peace and prosperity and opportunity for people, why not do that? So I would just say and invite people to come and join us. And thank you, Jerry, for working and offering to work with us, because that's a blessing to be able to get the message out.
I'm a firm believer in Byron Allen's perspective about having our own media networks and utilizing those networks, not just for commercial purposes, but for purposeful purposes. Sounds crazy when you say it like that, right? But purposeful purposes. This lioness, and I don't say it in an animalistic way, I talk about leadership and power and being the backbone of the pride of the community, which our women here in America have been for well over 500 years. When men couldn't be men, couldn't protect their families, couldn't protect their babies, our women were our therapists. It's okay, baby. We can do this. We can make it. Once again, we see a sister here, not afraid to say, I'm for the people of color of African descent. This movement, while it benefits the world, it benefits our communities even better. Why? Because our men stay on the streets. Our generations get an opportunity to grow up and contribute. I'm not going to preach. We don't have to, you see.
I'm listening to you. I'm waiting for the plate to be passed. That's what I'm waiting.
You know what? Look, I got a whole truckload of serving platters. I'm not passing out plates. When I feed you, I'll feed you. You've been of
Do you
service.
remember Sambo's? Remember Sambo's restaurant?
Y'all, Denny's used to be Sambo's, and it was a little black boy in a turban with tigers and lions on the screens.
There it is. Come on, come
on
on.
now. I know
In our
about
lifetime.
Sambo. I know about Little Black Sambo's and Sambo's restaurant and the protest that changed
There it is.
a whole industry
There it is.
overnight.
There it is.
We are talking about real meat and potatoes. We're talking about real mental and spiritual nourishment. Come on, hip hop for peace, rap for peace. She is now Madam President Tina Marie Tyler, California Division of UNESCO.
Yes.
I'm so proud for you.
Thank you.
Gives me hope. And once again, for all you who feel like women can't lead or shouldn't lead us, they got better clarity. Look, I'm a brother with 9 sisters, a mother, and had I listened earlier, I may not have made a lot of the mistakes that I made. Closing words.
I would just like to say that everybody can effectuate change. Everyone. Do not feel as though you need to have a bunch of letters after your name, or come from a certain family, or have a certain amount of money in the bank, or attend the right church, or the right college, or work at the right company. You can, everybody can do something to promote peace every single day. And so that is what I would like to leave and challenge folks with. Find your peace, find your inner peace, and promote peace in what you do. Lead with peace. It's not always easy because, our folks, they will try you. Ooh, I love my people, but they will try you. But if you lead with peace, come on, there, But if you lead with peace, and you're mindful, you'll count to 10 before you respond to somebody or whatever. But all I'm saying is I would just like to challenge everybody to lead with peace and do what they can to promote peace in their everyday life.
Support that 100%. Hype Magazine live sessions. Tina Marie Tyler, Hip Hop for Peace, June 2nd, a hip hop gun violence awareness conference in Los Angeles. Support. And we're out.
As an artist, we should reflect the time.
Why you so talented?
Cause I'm black.
Why you so amazing?
Cause I'm black.
It's really important that we build characters so that people understand their story matters.
2 Chainz and I both are just really into good food.
And when you know you are royalty, you will only aim in life to be royalty.
We're doing it right now. I don't give a damn what they say about me. Yes, I called your ass out. I know I shouldn't be saying this kind of.
Shout out to Hype Magazine Network.
Shout out to the Hype Magazine Network.